In today's video, I'm going to try to save you some time, some money, and some aggravation. We're going to be talking about things that you do not need in your Florida home. These are things that you don't need to waste your time looking for. And then as a bonus, I'm going to give you a couple things that are really hard to find that you need to be aware of so you're not thinking that it's just you. Some of these things, they're just not out there. So first of all, if you're new to the channel, let me introduce myself. My name is Barrett Pastor, and I've been a real estate broker for over 26 years. So hopefully I'm coming to you from a place of knowledge and experience, and I can help you navigate the Florida terrain. Now, if you are interested in doing a consultation, I do offer one-on-one consultations. We can do a Zoom call. I offer a 40-minute time slot, so bring your questions. We'll dive into everything you want to know, even if you're 5 years out, or maybe you're not sure if Florida is the right place for you or not. I'll leave a link right here and also down in the description box. All right, let's jump into, we have quite a few. Let's see. I have 9 things you do not need and then a couple bonuses. All right, so number 1 is a fireplace. Don't get hung up on that. They're hard to find. From time to time, you will see them in Florida, but you really don't need it. And if you're like, well, you know what, I just like the ambiance, then get one of those that you can buy like at Home Depot or Front Gate or somewhere like that if you want a fancy one. But don't look for a wood-burning fireplace, and definitely don't look for a gas fireplace. You're going to have trouble finding it, and really you don't need the fireplace. And even if you found it, it's going to be hard to find wood because it's super rare. You don't need it. Number 2, massive bookshelves. You know, like you've got this big wall piece, built-in shelving, tons and tons of shelving on either side of this big built-in space for a television. Now, first of all, they used to do those in the 90s. That was kind of popular in the 90s. But then televisions got bigger and people like to hang them on the wall, and it gets more difficult. You know, if you want some great big television and then they cut out a smaller space for you, you can't even get your TV in there. And then those shelves, they are just so dated. People don't like them anymore. Really, they're dust collectors. You know, you put all these little tchotchkes on them and it's sort of just things to dust, you know. They're just really not necessary anymore. Number 3, a huge kitchen island. You don't need that. You know, there was a time and place like early 2000 where these massive, unnecessarily large islands became popular. And you know what happened? People could not fit their kitchen table. And then they kind of felt like, you know, I don't even know if I like this island anymore. It's kind of like hit me in the hip and it's in the way, and then they didn't want it, and then it's stuck. It's right there in the middle. And along those lines, you definitely don't want one that's like bar stool height. Those are completely dated. Some people will cut those down to more like a table height, but honestly, or a countertop height is a better way to put it. But honestly, you don't need a big, massive kitchen island, and most people don't want them anymore. Maybe a little island, but not anything huge. So most people ask for a huge lanai, otherwise known up north as a screened-in porch. So you have usually sliders. Those sliders will go across. A lot of times they'll go all the way into the wall. It's wonderful. It's kind of like indoor-outdoor living. And then you're out onto your lanai and sometimes out to your pool cage and your pool. Don't expect to find, nor do you need, a screen. So you know with a screened-in porch, how you know, from going from the inside to the outside, you open the screen and you're out on your patio or whatever it is. You don't need that in Florida because that entire pool cage or the lanai, that's your screen. And you're screened in at the roof as well, so you don't have to worry about that. Serves the purpose of the screen. If you have the screen coming across, it's just kind of more things you need to move, and also it's more difficult because nothing is set up that way to move all of those panes into the wall, because that's how it's built. But from time to time, we have people that say, no, I feel like I need the screens. They just don't, they can't wrap their head around the fact that the lanai, the screened in pool cage or not, that is your screen. Number 5, a coat closet. You know how you step into the front door and a lot of times you'll see a coat closet? Do you even need a coat closet? Do you even need a coat in Florida? I get that question a lot. I would say that yes, you do need a light coat, because like right now, it's in the 50s in Florida. So there are times in the middle of the winter, like January, February, sometimes even in March, where it does take those dips for a week or two where it does get pretty cold. It's not super common, but it's a good idea to have a coat. But you know what? You don't need like a bunch of warm clothes. You can just take one coat and put it in your own closet. Formal dining rooms are kind of out of style. And if you think about it, most of your family is probably still up north. Maybe you have family around in Florida where you're buying, but most people don't, and they just don't need that formal dining room. And if you think about it, a lot of people only utilize that formal dining room for Thanksgiving and Christmas, maybe on Easter, and it takes up so much space. And the way that you live in Florida is just vastly different than the way that you live up north. So dining rooms don't feel like you need every single room that you have up north, because the truth is you will not live the same in Florida at all than you do up north. And along those lines, a mudroom. Up north, it's really popular, especially if you have 2 or 3 kids, that you have a mudroom. And usually that mudroom is dressed out with some things that hold lots of shoes and some coat hangers, things along those lines, where you can take your shoes off, put them in these little sort of partitions. The only thing that you kind of need in Florida is somewhere because of sand. So if you're kicking off your flip-flops, maybe you need a little space, a little utilized space for that, but a lot of times people do that in their garage. The real estate is so expensive in Florida that you don't want to take up rooms. That's why, I've talked about this before, that's why it's kind of handy for some folks to have their washer and dryer in the garage, which is not uncommon in Florida. So it's not taking up space in your high dollar real estate. So it's not kind of encroaching on your living area. So I would say the same thing about a mudroom. You really just don't need it. Number 8 is huge rooms. One of the things that I hear a lot when people fly down to look at homes is, my gosh, the bedrooms are so small. Well, the reason is that you live differently. And I know I say that all the time. You're outside all the time. You're not generally going to bed at 7 o'clock and watching all your programs. Now you might, but you also might do that outside on your lanai. And that brings us into our last one, which is understand that outdoor lanai is going to serve as a big family room. And a lot of people don't realize that. You really should furnish that outdoor lanai as a family room that you're going to use all the time, or even as a theater room, because a lot of people like to hang a big TV in the corner outside because they want to be able to see it from their pool. They want to be kind of floating in the pool and watching golf or watching the football game. And you can absolutely do that. Hook that up with some good speakers. Don't think of it like your screened in porch up north where you get, whatever is on sale in the off season at Home Depot. Maybe you spend a few $100s. I wouldn't do that. Think of it like the same way that you would furnish your family room or your living room, something like that you're going to utilize all the time and have guests. Maybe even if you don't have guests, you want to be comfortable sitting outside, and you don't want to buy indoor furniture for an outdoor space. Why? Because it will mold. There's a lot of humidity in Florida, it rains a lot, and it will mold. I've seen people do that to where they will take that idea to the extreme and they'll put their family room furniture on the lanai because they're outside all the time, and before you know it, a few months passes and they have mold on their fabric from their couch. So don't do that, but anticipate spending similar to what you might spend in your family room because you are going to utilize that often. And then a couple little bonus points that I want to bring up that you should be aware of is don't so much have the expectation of a fence. A fence is a little bit hard to find. A lot of the HOAs have rules against fences, and especially if you want to back to water, it's unusual. There are some communities in Fort Myers that allow it, but it just kind of aesthetically, it doesn't look good. If you're looking out at this beautiful lake and everybody has a different fence, a different size fence, sometimes there's even dog areas in each community, but fencing is a little bit unusual. Same thing with a garden. You almost never see gardens in Florida, and you almost never see sheds. Now, if you're in a non-HOA community like Golden Gate Estates in Naples, maybe somewhere in Englewood, somewhere in Nokomis, where you're not going to have those HOAs, then maybe you see a shed or a fence or a garden. But in your typical Florida home, your typical HOA Florida home, newer home, you're not going to see those things. And lastly, the other thing I don't want you to go digging for that's really, really hard to find is natural gas. There are some communities that are natural gas. There's a few even in Southwest Florida. A lot of the new builds are offering it because people want that, but it is unusual to see natural gas. So what ends up happening is you're not going to see that gas stove so much. They're out there, but I can think of a handful of communities. I've even run property for people just based on the ability to have a gas stove. So I'm aware of which ones have it, but it's a small handful. So keep that in mind. So gas barbecue pits, yes, you can bury a propane tank, but it's not going to be the way that it was up north. You don't have that natural gas readily available the way that you maybe were used to. So I hope that helps. Anything unusual that maybe I didn't mention, let us all know down in comments, and I'll see you in the next couple days for another video.